afternoon, you wee bastards, and welcome back to some more War Thunder devblog content with Koala. This time we're taking a look at my most anticipated vehicle of the patch, the Soviet T-62M-1. I know this vehicle was announced a good few days ago and featured on the dev server, but the dev server closed slightly earlier than I'd expected it to, and so I haven't got any footage from that. And as for this video's lateness, you can blame my girlfriend for that. Oh wait, that sounded not what I meant. Anyway, the T-62M is a tank I've talked about in another video fairly recently discussing Soviet MBTs that were leaked in a Reddit post, so I'll link that video on screen and in the description, but let's go over some basic points. So in 1983 the Soviets were employing mainly T-72 and T-80 tanks, but they still had a great many outdated models that they decided it was worth making use of if they could be modernised to a high enough standard to allow them to compete and keep up with those newer introductions. The T-62 underwent some major overhauls, receiving a ton of new equipment, mostly engine related, but it did retain the same chassis, turret and gun, the 115mm U5TS. The variation of the upgrade package that we are seeing is the M1, whose main addition was that of a new more powerful engine coupled with a ton of additional armour. This tank on the dev server, of course you can only trust dev server information so far, but as of the dev server, this tank had armour superior to that of the T-64A, and was placed at the same battle rating. With applique armour plates known colloquially as Ilyach's eyebrows around the gun, and added composite armour in the upper frontal plate, this tank definitely has the necessary protection to function at high tier. However, the two big boys of the update, the Leopard 2A4 and Type 90, are sure to bully the crap out of this thing. The tank also has both the heat protective panels from the T-64A and the rubber side skirts from the T-64B, as well as the same track assembly of the famous T-72. Yet well done Soviets, you took what you had and you made something awesome. And that's the main thing I like about this tank. It looks thrown together. Ugly as hell, to the degree that it's sexy because of how mean looking it is. Look at that add-on armour, this thing looks brutal. Where the T-64 and older T-62, the Leopard, the Abrams, the Chieftains, these tanks look clean, precise, somewhat formal, like the show dogs of the MBT world. This thing, however, looks like a bloodthirsty hound. It's got armour chucked onto the cheeks, it's got a new engine shoved up its ass, and it's ready to mess up your day. That's badass. This tank wasn't meant to deal with conflict going according to plan, sitting in the perfect position scouted out by recon, sniping targets from safety, all official and conventional. No, this hard son of a bitch was built to get down and dirty in the mud, where the pencil pusher's plans went to shit. It wasn't the kind of tank you paraded through cities, it was the kind of tank you didn't want to see, because that meant some bad stuff was going down nearby. Anyway, that's just my thoughts, let me know if you agree in the comments, and let's continue. This tank had the ability to fire 80 GMs out of the gun barrel, you can see the guidance sight situated just above the breech, and has a number of new and improved shells over the older T-62. This gives the tank reliable armour in a down tier, but also the firepower to deal with the up tiers it's likely to face. It also has twin 4-barrel smoke grenade launchers and a Dishka for anti-air purposes, and this, in my opinion, is the final thing that tips the scales between this and the T-64A. Hopefully this tank won't be up-tiered to 9.3 due to its lack of speed. Despite the improved engine, this is one heavy SOB, and the 60km/h top speed will just about be unachievable. It does, I believe, have a slightly better reverse speed than the T-64A, but at 4 tons heavier, it doesn't beat it in any other regard as far as mobility is concerned. Interestingly enough, with the add-on composite armour giving the T-62M1 an armour value of 400mm kinetic on the turret and upper front plate, stock, these things won't be able to pen each other. The upgraded 3BM28 APFSDA shell, however, has 410mm of penetration, not that high for top tier, but enough to easily deal with its own tier and below. Another couple of things worth mentioning, the T-62M1 receives the heat panels from the T-64A as upgrade modules rather than stock, but the things aren't all that particularly useful on the T-64A, so I'm not too concerned about that. It has an improved stabilizer over the T-62, and interestingly enough, the same sight used to guide the missiles could also be used as a night sight, however it could not be used for both tasks at once. So if Gaijin does want to begin modelling things like thermal imaging and night vision on tanks, it could make for an interesting situation where equipping ATGMs would deactivate your night vision ability, so during daytime battles you could feel free to take out some ATGMs for long range sniping, but during nighttime conflicts you'd want the added functionality of having a night sight. Now, I don't think anybody is likely to use the ATGMs on the T-62M anyway, but perhaps if we had, and I know you're all going to cringe at this, but larger maps where things like AFVs and IFVs, Bradleys, BMP4s, BMDs and other such vehicles could come into their own, with perhaps some more dynamic objectives as well, ATGMs would help to combat the speed of these vehicles at long ranges. They could go 110 kilometers an hour. It would also make for some more interesting gameplay and give a reason for ATGMs to be used at top tier, as I've seen very few of them being at all significant in battles currently due to the high amounts of chemical munitions protection of top tier MBTs. Just some ideas to keep in mind heading forward. So why do I love this tank so much? I mean, it's not going to perform exceptionally well. The T-64s are already very subpar at top tier due to their lack of mobility, and this tank is even slower. It's not got particularly high penetration, nothing on the newer tanks. Even the Leopard 2K at its BR has a much better gun. It won't have the armor to stand up to that Leopard. Admittedly, the Kylo should be 9.3 easy, and I will f***ing fight anyone who says otherwise in the comments, but the Abrams, Challenger, XM1, even the other 9.0s could give it trouble. Of course, we'll have to see come the live release of patch 1.79, but all in all, it doesn't fit the meta of the game, and will stand even less of a chance against the Leopard 2A4 and Type 90, which it will get up to fight constantly. It's essentially the Soviet answer to the Chieftain Mark 10, but by God is it sexy. Look how disgusting it looks. What an absolute beast. But not only that, this tank means some stuff. No, not to me personally, I didn't know anybody who crewed them or fought against them or anything like that, but to the game. I already mentioned the possibility of night vision, which has been up in the air for a while, but also having this tank with the track assembly of the T-72 could be a telltale sign that we'll finally get that thing eventually. After all, there's not much else that could succeed this tank, and without anything to succeed it, not many people will play it. There are also different variations on the T-62M featuring different parts of the upgrade package, with some even having Contact 1 ERA like the T-64BV, which we could see as a modification in future. It was also leaked in the same post as the Leopard 2, T-64BV and other tanks which we see now, and that same post mentioned the M1IP, M1A1, Challenger 1 Mark III with, I believe it's called Warfighter equipment, MBT-80, IS-7, later Type 74 variants, the STC, and, my baby, the T-80. All these tanks are now as good as confirmed, so I look forward to seeing them. I'm also glad that things are being added to rank 6 that aren't necessarily power creeping top tier stuff, and this thing is going to stomp in a down tier. But mainly, I just love how disgustingly badass this thing looks. It's a bloody juggernaut. Actually, that's something I forgot to mention earlier. Once you get this thing up to speed, it doesn't stop. It's like a freight train. Hills, mud, shallow water, doesn't matter in the slightest to the T-62M. Anyway lads, that is going to be it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed. Please leave a like and subscribe if you did, as there will be new content out on my channel every single day. Be sure to leave your own thoughts on this vehicle down in the comments. Come follow me over on Twitch, Twitter, Discord and all the rest, links below. And as always, I shall see you lads next video. If anyone moving through here, because this is right on the capture point.
You can have
what is that building meant to be? It's like a little chateau.
Which one? This one on the left here?
This one, yeah, kind of directly to my 9 o'clock.
Oh. Where are you going?
Oh, you actually made that turn, wow. Oh, two off to the right there. That was a pretty cool building. I love the design on these buildings. It reminds me of Assassin's Creed 4.